Finding probable cause, and I'm going to keep the no bond hold on Mr. White.
But Sunday was behind bars, facing charges of premeditated and first-degree murder with a firearm after being accused of killing Girlalala. Broward County Sheriff's Office says around 7 p.m. Friday night at the 3300 block of Northwest 37th Street in Lauderdale Lakes, they found Girlalala in the front passenger seat of a car with multiple gunshot wounds.
Why I'm going to jail? If I tell y'all one more time why I'm going to jail, I did fucking fraud. That's why I'm going to jail.
On November 15th, 2025, a Tesla's door camera captured something absolutely chilling. A young woman trying to escape a car, a man grabbing her by the hair, forcing her back inside, and then 2 gunshots that would end a life that thousands of people watched and loved every single day. But here's what makes this even more heartbreaking. The victim had been telling us something was wrong for months. She'd been showing us the bruises, the cuts, the fights, and we watched. Some of us laughed because she made it sound funny. Some of us commented with emojis. But nobody really understood how serious it was until it was too late. If you care about this story, if you want justice for what happened, please hit that like button right now. Share this video because people need to know her name. Subscribe to Mystorcrimes and smash that bell icon so you never miss when we cover cases like this. Because this isn't just about views. This is about making sure her story matters. Let me tell you about Maurice Jaden Harrison. You probably knew her as Girlalala. She was only 21 years old, but she'd already built something incredible. Nearly 300,000 people followed her on TikTok. She was a wig influencer, a hairstylist, someone who made people feel beautiful. She ran her own business called Girlalala Beauty Bar in Pompano Beach, Florida. When you watched her videos, you saw confidence, you saw talent, you saw someone who was living her truth as a proud transgender woman. But behind all those followers, behind that smile and those perfectly styled wigs, there was something dark happening that most people didn't want to see. She was dating a guy named Shanoyd Whyte Jr. He was 25 years old, a former college football player who played defensive lineman for Bethune-Cookman University. On the surface, they looked like a couple. But if you paid attention to Girlalala's posts, if you really listened to what she was saying, you'd see the cracks. She posted videos talking about their fights, physical fights. She showed her followers a cut on her nose, bruising under her eye. She talked about how he would rip her wigs off during arguments, how he'd bite her, how they were always fighting. And here's the thing that still haunts me about this case. She said it. She literally told everyone they always fight. The warning signs were right there in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Some sort of argument between 2 men that left one shot and killed and the person that did the shooting claiming self-defense. Now, we know that person is being detained by TPD right now. This scene has been extremely active over the last few hours. We know it probably started somewhere between the 7 and 8 o'clock hour as we were simply driving by when we saw all of this happen.
Now, Shanoyd Whyte wasn't a first-time offender when it came to violence. Back in November 2022, 3 years before he killed Girlalala, he was arrested for domestic violence. The arrest report said he physically and maliciously battered a victim multiple times. That victim wasn't Girlalala. But here's what's important. That victim decided not to pursue the case. The charges got dropped, and Whyte walked free. Think about that for a second. Someone who'd already been arrested for beating another person was now in a relationship with Girlalala, and the violence was escalating. The system had already failed once, and it was about to fail again in the worst possible way. According to what police found out later, Girlalala and Whyte had been together for several years, and those years were filled with constant arguments. On November 15 alone, they'd already fought multiple times that day. Multiple times. By the evening, around 7 p.m., they were in his car in Lauderdale Lakes, in the 3300 block of Northwest 37th Avenue. What happened next, we know because of that Tesla camera I mentioned at the beginning, and because neighbors heard what was happening, and because of what Whyte himself told the police. They were arguing in the car. According to Whyte's own statement to detectives, the fight got physical when Girlalala pulled his hair. But here's where his story stops making sense. He refused to explain what happened with the gun. He just refused to talk about it. But the Tesla camera shows us everything we need to know. The passenger door opens. Girlalala is trying to get out of that car. She's trying to escape. And White gets out of the driver's side, comes around, and grabs her by the hair. He forces her back into the passenger seat. Then he's pacing around with his phone. And then he reaches to his waistband, pulls out a gun, and fires into the passenger seat where she's sitting. The camera caught the muzzle flash. Neighbors heard 2 gunshots. When police arrived, they found 2 9mm shell casings inside the car. They found a holstered handgun. They found blood on the passenger seat, blood pooled on the floorboard, blood droplets on the pavement outside the open passenger door. And here's something that still gives me chills. After White shot her, the surveillance footage shows him walking around the vehicle with the gun still in his hand. Then he reaches into the car and pulls Girlalala upright by her hair because she'd slumped over after being shot. Let that sink in. He pulled her up by her hair after shooting her multiple times. Then Shanoyd Whyte did something that might seem surprising, but it's actually pretty common in these cases. He called 911 himself. And when you listen to that call, it's frantic. He's screaming into the phone, "I need help. Please, I need help." He's begging the dispatcher to hurry up and get there. When the deputies arrived, he flagged them down. Now, some people might hear that 911 call and think, see, he was upset. He didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. But remember what the Tesla camera showed. Remember that he pulled the gun from his waistband. Remember that he fired multiple shots. Remember that he pulled her up by her hair after she'd been shot. The police certainly remembered all of that, because they arrested him right there at the scene. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. was charged with first-degree premeditated murder with firearm, not second-degree, not manslaughter, first-degree premeditated murder. That word premeditated is huge. It means prosecutors believe he planned this, that it wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment thing, and he's being held without bond at Broward County Main Jail. But the tragedy doesn't stop there. This family had already been destroyed by gun violence. Just over a year before Girlalala was killed, in August 2024, her brother was shot and killed. Her brother. Imagine being her parents. You lose your son to gun violence. Then barely a year later, you lose your daughter the same way. What do you even do with that kind of pain? The family released a statement, and it was simple but powerful. They said, "As a family, we appreciate every prayer, kind thought, and gesture during our time of bereavement. Now, we are just praying that justice is served to the fullest degree." Justice to the fullest degree. When you're charged with first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm in Florida, that can mean life in prison without parole. In some cases, it can even mean the death penalty. And given what that Tesla camera captured, given the evidence, given White's history, prosecutors have a strong case. But while the legal system was working on justice, something beautiful happened. The community came together. Someone started a GoFundMe to help with funeral expenses, and it raised over $28,000, surpassing the $25,000 goal. People who never even met Girlalala in person donated because they felt like they knew her, because they'd watched her videos, because they'd seen her light. And then rapper JT from City Girls stepped up in a major way. JT donated $5,000 to the funeral fund. But more than that, she used her platform to say what needed to be said. She posted on Instagram, "Rest, beautiful Girlalala. We love you, and heaven will never be boring now that you are there. Your boldness, energy, humor, and beauty will be missed. You never miss a chance to show me love, and for that I'm forever grateful." She added the hashtags Protect Trans Women and Protect Black Women. But JT also posted something else that I think everyone needs to hear. She said, "Stop laughing at domestic content. Sometime we stroll and key about very serious things because the person who's telling the story delivered it funny, but nothing is funny about a domestic violence story." And that's the gut punch, isn't it? Because that's exactly what happened. Girlalala would post about her fights with White, and because of how she told the stories, people would laugh. They'd comment with crying, laughing emojis. They'd share it as entertainment. But behind that humor was real violence, real fear, real danger. The funeral is scheduled for December 6, 2025, in Pompano Beach. But the questions this case raises don't end with funeral or even with conviction. So let me ask you this. When someone shows you bruises and tells you about violence but does it with a smile or a joke, why do we treat it like entertainment? Why do we scroll past instead of asking if they're okay? Girlalala showed us cuts on her face. She told us they always fight. She gave us every warning sign. And we watched, but did we really see? And here's another question. Why are Black transgender women experiencing violence at such horrific rates? Why does it feel like their lives matter less? Why does it take a murder caught on camera for people to finally pay attention? If this story affected you, if you think Girlalala's life mattered, if you believe we need to do better, then don't just watch and leave. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Mystorcrimes because we're going to keep covering these stories until something changes. And click that bell icon so you're here every time we demand justice. Let's make sure her name is never forgotten.